Om Namo Narayana. Dear devotees of Chicago Bari, we have an interesting program right now. We have a guest speaker from Virginia area, Mr. Sriram Ramanujam. And let me give the mic to him. He will briefly introduce himself and he will talk on a subject which will be of great interest to our youngsters from a scientific point of view. Is on astrology coupled with the astronomy aspects of the science. With that, let me hand over the mic to Mr. Sriram.
Namaskaram, Jai Shima Narayana. My name is Sriram Ramanujam, like Sampath Swami introduced. I'm here in the Fairfax, Virginia area. I have a great interest in terms of, this whole aspect of our Indian system of timekeeping, calendar, and of course, a lot of different aspects of how our Vedic system works. So I as a professional person, I work for Comcast. Some of you may have heard about it. But my interest lies in a lot of different aspects of our philosophy and also about the Vedic culture. So Sampath Swami asked me to kind of give a brief talk about how our Indian calendar works, how it's related to the timekeeping that we have, from millions and millions of years. So we're going to start today as an introduction with the topic called time, right? Time as a concept is very unique to our Indian system. When you look at how Westerners and the rest of the world actually see time, time as a factor starts from where you are, right? You measure time from the day that you are in, the hour you're in, the second you're in, and then it expands to the year and so on and so forth. But if you look at what I have, I'm going to share something on the screen for you so that you can see what we have. Give me a second here. I apologize. Yeah. So I hope you're able to see my screen here. So I have up here what's called the Jagat Chakram, Kala Chakram cha Shashvatam. In the Shodasaya, the Stotram of Swami Vedanta Desika, he says our entire universe, the Jagat Chakram, right, the cycle of our creation is as Shashvatam or timeless or limitless as much as the time that we have. So time is a constant, change is a constant, so is also the world is at a constant pace. So the influence of time for us, it comes from the cosmos. Truly speaking, everything that we do for time comes from the outside in for our Vedic system. It never is from inside out like most other philosophies. I shouldn't even say philosophy because ours is a codified way of life in terms of how the creation works. The time for us is relative to the entire creation, the universe outside of us. It's the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxies, everything forms the time concept for us. And when we talk about time on Earth, it's relative to the various other planetary bodies or galaxies out there, and so on and so forth. When we get further into the different parts of the lecture, I'll be able to explain to you in detail as to how and why that has relevance to the way we think about time and the place we are in, because we view the universe as a whole when it comes to our the one point in space that we are in on this Earth. So interestingly, I want to kind of have have had the education, the Western education, would be very familiar with Sir Isaac Newton. He was in the recent past, he's one of the greatest scientists that could have ever existed. He found or discovered the concepts of gravity, right? And lots of laws of physics. He made a lot of strides in them. It is definitely relevant to our topic of discussion, which is going to be time. Okay, definitely because gravity plays a huge role in terms of how it defines how things work for us. And so, for him, he saw the apple fall that most of you already know, and then he became a very religious person also. He was an extremely religious person towards the later parts of his life. He did write a lot of treatises about how he was able to find gravity, in the sense that he was able to know gravity and its impact, but he didn't know where it originated from. He was never able to make the connection to how gravity played an important role from coming from outside. But what he knew was there was an external force that really made gravity work here on the earth. So that's an important concept to kind of keep in mind. So how does that differ with what we have? The thing for us, the our Indian system is almost everything that we have comes from the Vedas. The Vedas, as you know, is Apaurusheyam, right? You've heard of the terms. It's Apaurusheyam. It's non-human. It's handed down from from Sriman Narayan to Brahma to the rishis. As much as what we can hold in or make sense of with our limited brain capacity. So that's what Vedas are. Vedas are really, things that have come down from the top, from the different places in the cosmos. That's the reason why we know a lot more about it. We can define the different lokas as you see in this picture. There's 14 of them that most of you must have heard of. 7 above the earth and 7 below. So that's an important other concept to kind of keep in mind while we talk through this. The important thing that we have that others do not is the Vedas. And why is it different? Because Vedas in general, there are many different parts of the Vedas. Some of them very well understood, some of them not as much. That's the reason why this part of the Vedas is something that is of very great interest to us, as we look at it from a different angle. So what we're going to look at right now, as it relates to time and the Indian calendar and how things work for us, is Jyotishastra. So Jyotishastra forms an anga of the Vedas. Anga means a branch of Vedas. So there are 6 angas, and out of them, one of them is the Jyotishastra. Uh, Commonly, people have misunderstood Jyotishastra to mean astrology. Unfortunately, it's had a good and a bad connotation, where people think it's all about sentimentality. It's about planetary influences. Something that we don't want to buy into. Truly speaking, if you look at the Sanskritam word for it, Jyoti is light. Shastra is the study of light. So it's all about learning and talking about how the cosmos works, because light is primarily the source of all life forms. Only if there's light can you even talk about a life having been formed. And when you have the life form being born or created, that's when you have time, right? Time comes from light. Time is what travels. Our rishis found out that the time is what, when it starts, it's got to start at some place. It's got to start in a sun or a star or something, and it takes billions of years to reach us, or a few seconds to reach us. Whatever it be, there's a time component that is associated with the light when it is formed and when the energy is created. So our Jyotishastra is an important component that not many in our own Indian system have devoted much of their time or energy to dig deeper into knowing what it means to the other parts of the Vedas in terms of how it relates to our lives. And so as we move on, right? So we were talking about light. So light as such is the, like we said, is the basic component, and that's what defines our time of the day. For example, most people may have seen in olden buildings, if you go to olden buildings, if there's a window that's open, if there's slats or the bars that separate out, you know one would see, or there's a crack in the window, one would see the dust particles that form on the light is something that you can see when the sunlight is there. And as the day progresses, it moves to the next slit in the window. So our forefathers figured out that the time taken for the sunlight to move, because it's a straight line, and to move from one particle to the next is what constitutes the time measurement during the day. They said it's various things like anu, paramanu, those are the different categories that they gave. And then of course, like all of us know, like time is what the light is what defines our hours, night, days, your seasonal changes in terms of how the intensity of the light works, because as we go closer to the sun, or farther away from the sun, everything else changes, right? The light has a huge impact on us. The sun rays, that's the light I'm talking about in terms of how the energy dissipation and everything else works here. One of the other important concepts that I want to kind of introduce today is Kalpa and Pralaya. So there are a couple very important ones to kind of recognize. And as we move on to the next screen here, you will see a different the definitions of what Kalpa and Pralaya mean. I want to first talk about now that we have talked about light, right? As since we know that there's, because of light and the non-existence of the light, we have night and day. So a night is when we are not able to see light, right? There's always, the sun is always shining bright on us, but we have turned ourselves on a different part so that we are not able to see the light, but the light is still there. So that's the day and the night. So day is when we are able to see the light, night is when we are unable to see the light. Similarly, we have what's called, when you expand that across the universe, right? For the entire universe, we have what's called a pralaya or the Maha Pralaya. So the Maha Pralaya is where we have non-creation, meaning everything that we know of as the universe, the entire galaxies, the entire suns, the billions and billions of suns that we have. There's a billions and billions of clusters of galaxies that we have. Everything gets compressed, right? It gets compressed as a black hole into Sriman Narayana's Nabhi as we know it. He holds everything in his Nabhi, is how we know the Vatapatra Sai or Nyagrodha Sayin, right? There's a avataram in for Sriman Narayana that specifically describes how he lies in the cosmic ocean on a people leaf, right? Many people have seen that posture of Narayana as little Krishna, as a little baby with the entire universe contained in his Nabi Kamalam, right? That's what's Pralaya. But even that Pralaya time has a time component to it, because there's, as much as there is a creation, Pralaya also has time movement. The reason why the time movement still exists, all of that actually comes from another place called Sri Vaikuntham. So most of you may have heard about Sri Vaikuntham. Sri Vaikuntham is the powerhouse or the source of all energies, light energy, and so also the gravitational energy. So we're going to look at the gravitational energy. We're going to come back to the gravitational energy, but right now we're going to focus on the light energy. So the light energy that's there during pralaya is almost null, right? It's not, there's nothing, because there's no creation. So creation needs light. Here pralaya has no light. It's called a Maha Pralaya. So it's contained in his navi, as we said. There's nothing. And right opposite to that is kalpa. Kalpa and pralaya actually are pretty much equal. They are equal in length, just like we said, day and night. If you had 500 million years of non-creation, you will have 500 million years of creation. So they pretty much are both equal. Uh, that's why when we kind of say Jagat Chakram, Kala Chakram to Shashwatam, this is where the whole thing comes in. When we have nothing, the nothing also has a time span, and everything else also has a time span. So we come back. It's cyclical in the same sense, though. Now, kalpa as a word really means, it's an imagination or anything, right? Kalpa is how it's a creation. Um, Sriman Narayana, when he has a divine wish, right? When he takes sankalpa, that's when something gets created, right? Even we normal human beings also do sankalpa when we do things like a havan at the temple, or when we want to do an important ritual at home. We absolutely do sankalpa in our own little way. That's what I want to kind of get to. Or the different components that we use for sankalpa is based on our Indian calendar, right? That those things that we will walk through at a later point in time will have a connotation to why we are talking about this cosmos, because it has a relationship to everything that we are going to say there in terms of the kalpa. So kalpa, truly speaking, everything that we see, right, in from science, our own Milky Way, our own galaxy, there are billions of billions and billions of galaxies like ours, just not millions. Okay, there are billions of stars, there are billions of suns, innumerable in respect to what we have. The lokas that you see are actually they don't is the same size, truly speaking. They're huge in terms of how they expand out. That's the reason the time component, or for example, you've heard about Swargaloka, the Devatas having a different time span than what humans have. That's because their worlds are much, much farther away, much, much larger. The rotational speeds of their planets, so wherever they're living, is much different. So the time component is different in their worlds than it is in ours. But if you look at the expanse of the universe that we live in, right, even from the scientific perspective, it's only 25% of what the rest of the world that's controlled by Sriman Narayana, that's called Sri Vaikuntham, is. It's believed to be about 75% of that is all Vaikuntham. It's so huge that people can't even imagine. The things that I'm saying here are referenced in Srimad Bhagavatam. They're referenced in Vishnu Puranam, and also Ramanujacharya, or a great philosopher. He also has codified these in the Gadyams that he has authored on the efficacy of these words. So when I talk about Sri Vaikuntham, the reason why it's important is Sri Vaikuntham is what provides the Adhara Shakti. The Adhara Shakti that we have in this universe, when the world is created, right? When the world is created as a kalpa, the kalpa happens when the energy is released. The releasing of the energy is what creates the world that we know of, with the planetary movements, the adityas that form the suns, plus the other planetary systems to moons and everything else, right? Some gaseous matter condense and become planets, the others stay as gaseous matter, some become suns that emit light source, that is helpful in the life forms in order to nurture life itself. So keep in mind a few different concepts that we have talked about. Again, recapping, we talked about light, we talked a little bit about gravity, and then we talked about pralaya, and we talked about kalpa. So what we're going to talk about again, right, is Kalpa. Within the Kalpa happens to use what is known as, derive its energy from what's known as Adhara Shakti. So Adhara Shakti is what provides, it's a force that holds not just our Milky Way or our Earth or our Sun. It holds together pretty much everything that we know of in this world, right? The created world as we know of, every single planetary system or the distant star that you see in the entire sky is held up by Adhara Shakti. And that Adhara Shakti, actually, if you look at, if you see Srimad Bhagavatam again, the Dhruva pole star, Dhruva or the pole star, right? Dhruva is I want to introduce this uh, the character of Dhruva. Many people may have heard about him. He's the young boy, right, as old as 5, that was not offered a place on his father's lap. He really had to go do penance. He was asked to get away from his father by his stepmother. He goes and he does penance for many years at the when Narada asks him to do it, and Mahavishnu, of course, comes in, and then he blesses him with you know uh, with the knowledge. So he touches his cheek with Shanka, right, and then he gains so much knowledge, and Shiva Mahavishnu is so impressed with Dhruva that he really decides to give him create a world for him, and actually the star. That star, Dhruvalokam, is Dhruva is what holds the entire universe that we see it. The entire universe is held by Dhruva, and Dhruva as such is called the pole star that we know of in the Western philosophy, and it also has a connotation of the Big Dipper. The Big Dipper is the Sapta Rishi Mandalas. So again, the rishis that are there representing the Big Dipper or the Sapta Rishi Mandalas, and the Sapta Rishis that there are sitting, or the representatives that do take part in the creation. Rishis are just not rishis that are born on the earth. They do, or non-earth people also, and they are Prajapatis. They really they take care of the creation of the world. So that's the other concept that we need to know. The one other thing I want to kind of introduce here is the fact that our Vedic system, or the way of thinking, has what's called duality. Everything has to have if there's a plus, there's a minus. If there's one, there's two. The minus one. So there's always the positive, a negative. If we have two hands, one hand, the hand on the right hand and the left hand, they look pretty similar. There's always the concept of balancing things. When we have so many other things in our philosophy, there's always got to be a balance, but there's always two equal and opposite forces. So the reason I bring that up right now is we talked about Adhara Shakti that provides the gravitational forces that hold all the movements of the galaxies, right, together. But at the same time, what really holds it up is also Sankarshana. Sankarshana, or the Ananta, right? People have heard about Balarama Avataram, right? Balarama Avataram actually emanates from Sankarshana, the Ananta. So he's the one that supports the universe from the bottom, right? He's the one that provides the bottom up in a force that balances out the gravitational Adhara Shakti on the top. So there's many things at play here in terms of how the universe works, in terms of the forces, and how they're all held together. So I wanted to kind of introduce a few things here in terms of when we have this creation, the Kalpa, when the light is what provides us the creation and the various planets, when it sends all the suns out and the moons out and the planets, right? What's going to boggle our minds, right, is the Earth that we know of, right? We are rotating on our axis as we rotate from day in and day out, right? From for creating the days and the nights, we are rotating at 1,000 miles an hour, right? Imagine 1,000 miles an hour. We don't feel a darn thing. We are right here on this earth, and we don't feel ourselves rotating at 1,000 miles an hour. And then the revolution is what we mean by going around the sun. The going around the sun, that in itself, because we have to travel 660 million miles in a given year, and we are revolving at 66,000 miles an hour in order to cover that. So by the time we have spring right now, by the time we go to the next spring in 2022, we would have traveled at 66,000 miles an hour. So that's how fast the earth is moving around the sun. Again, it's all because of the gravitational forces, and we have the same path. We may change a little bit here and there, but pretty much the movement is pretty much the same. And our entire solar system, so to speak, right? Our entire solar system, including the sun and all of its planets, all of the planets that we either, the Western astronomers are going to find out about Pluto, drop Pluto, whatever. It doesn't matter. All of these planets are moving at 448,000 miles an hour. Nearly 500,000 miles an hour is the kind of speed that we are traveling. And how long have we traveled like this? How long have we known Earth to be created? Millions of years, right? Millions and millions of years. And we have still, we don't know what we have covered, right? The expanse of space is so much that the 500,000 miles that we have covered means nothing in comparison to how big the universe is. So that's what we mean when we have when we are traveling across time in these aspects. So as we talk about these time concepts in terms of how the earth fits in, we need to realize how much minuscule we are. We form an extremely small part of the entire cosmos. uh, we feel really humbled to be part of this great creation that people have created, that like Sriman Narayana has created for us, with the people that he has appointed, like from the Brahmas to the Prajapatis to the various devatas, the people that control the sun, the moon, the stars. uh, they all play an important role in the creation and the sustenance of life wherever they are. We have to remember that Westerners may think, oh, is there a different world other than ours? Of course, the answer is check mark. Yes, for us. Our Vedas say there are many lokas. Are there life forms in different planets? Yes, there are. Not that we can see in the kind of eyes that we have. They definitely exist. Um, so recognizing where we fit in with the larger cosmos is what our Indian calendar kind of tells you. When you talk about a sankalpam that we take, it'll break it down into the every single part of existence, and we recognize the existence of the rest of the cosmos around us. Truly speaking, right, when we talk about ecology today, when we live in on this earth, we talk about ecology, about knowing our surroundings, on this earth. We need to know about the forests that are there, the water systems that are there, and things of that sort. This study, actually the study of time, our Indian calendar, actually enables you, or enables each one of us that's interested, to know about the cosmic ecology. It tells you about knowing the creation around you that is making you live. Whether we realize it or not, simple things like the moon's movements have profound effect on the earth. On every individual, every single individual that there is, they have profound impact. Okay, it doesn't have to be in the astrological sense, but whether we like it or not, it's a fact of life that they have an impact on us. The picture that I'm showing here actually is a diorama. We will get to that in the next probably week. In terms of showing how the Earth moves around the sun. This is where we're going to get into deep details of the various months that make up our Indian calendar, how and why their names come into existence. We will talk about their relationship to how the constellation of the stars, make up the rashis or the months that we call. I know most people have heard the term panchangam to mean the 5 elements, Titi, Varam, Nakshatram, Karana Yoga. But that's very small portion of what we know as constituting the Panchangam. There's a lot more to it in terms of why we have a relationship to the Nakshatrams and things of that sort. So all of these concepts we'll cover in the next week and dig deeper into the individual references of how our forefathers, how our Vedic seers, how our rishis are able to decode from Vedas, the profound impact of the constellation, the nakshatra constellations, and how they view it to define the months for us. We will also look at how the sun, the solar calendar works, how the lunar calendar works, different parts of India. One of the things we really want to kind of bring across is there's so much more commonality than what people realize in the various systems that we have. Just that, in order to make our own understanding simpler, we try to call them, Chandramana calendar, which is maybe Telugu calendar or a Bengali calendar or whatever. Truly speaking, the underlying fundamentals of how they all work is the picture that I'm going to kind of walk you through next week. So with this, I want to kind of conclude today's presentation. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to kind of talk through. It's a always humbling experience to talk about our Vedic culture systems and how they actually relate to even the scientific world today, without many people even realizing how much of an impact it has. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you, Sampath Swami.
Thank you very much, Sriram. It's such an interesting subject, it is. And as you said, the universe is so large and we are such a trivial thing it is. And as our youngsters will know that recently NASA landed, that one in the Mars. It traveled 300 million miles. And Swati, one of the Indian engineers, she's my cousin's cousin, that one. And she's of a Vaishnava Sampradaya family. And that's what it is, all the calculation and other things, whatever rishis did, probably with the Sankalpa Matra, they learned it, from that one. And what we know is very little, it's still we are trying to find out what it is, that one. It's such an interesting subject it is, and you made it so easy with all the presentation of the slides. And we are looking forward, for your next, this will be a series of talks, it's a very large subject it is. We try to split it into 3 or 4 weeks, that one in a smaller parts so that we can digest it better, that one. And again, we thank Sri Ram profusely and look forward for our next talk. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
In today's program.
Yes, Manara.